my ass down, and we are going to dive into this football games. But before we move into that, I wanted to briefly cover our NFL, our top five NFL teams for each person. So I'm going to go one by one. So, Toddy, we are going to start with you first. Please give us your NFL top five teams currently going
Should I
into
go,
week 9.
should I go 5-1 or 1-5?
Let's go 5-1. Let's mix it up.
5-1. Okay. Five. I'll say Green Bay Packers. I think that what Jordan loves, what the Packers have been able to do by alternating quarterbacks, it's been pretty eye opening on what LaFleur has been able to do with both Malik Willis and Jordan Love. And for them to be able to still get the W, I get it is Jacksonville, but they were still able to get the win yesterday on the road. Did not cover the spread, but they were able to get the W. I would say Green Bay would be in there. Another team, it's NFC team for me. Um, I'll say the Baltimore Ravens. I'll still put them in my top five. I do believe Lamar Jackson and those boys were kind of caught sleeping at the wheel a little bit. I get it. It was Jameis Winston, no Deshaun Watson yesterday. You're on the road. It's Cleveland. You got freaking Miles Garrett showing up as the Terminator on Halloween. You already know those games are going to be weird. The Ravens were 9.5 point favorites. I think it closed at 8.5, to be honest. But I feel like they kind of just were. This was a division game. Those games end up getting weird. Um, so I'll probably have to put the Ravens at 4-3. I'm going to say the Washington Commanders. I think, by the way, yeah, the way Kevin's looking at me right now, he knows that
It's
his
crazy.
Eagles are not top five. Mathematically, they are ahead of the Eagles currently. Um, they are number one in their division. I get yesterday. I lost a what could have been yesterday. Thank you, Jaden Daniels, for ruining my Sunday. Um, did not have them yesterday. I definitely have the Bears winning. I think the dynamic of them still being able to kind of, with a rookie quarterback, they have a solid defense, and I believe Dan Quinn is a big reason why their defense looks solid. And I feel like their play calling on both ends of the football has been outstanding. Cliff Kingsbury, I mean, before yesterday, I think they were averaging north of 26 points a game on scoring. Obviously, they really weren't. Between the 20s yesterday, I feel like they were really, really good. I feel like when they got into the red zone, they definitely stalled out. Obviously, not being able to score touchdowns. Um, but Jaden Daniels is the real deal. That defense, I feel like, is the real deal. Brian Robinson, I think, is a guy that we got to start talking about. Is one of the better running backs in the league. Um, and I think the Commanders. And as I said before the season started, I said the Commanders would be one of the top teams in the NFL, and I did pick them to go to the playoffs. I did have them, I believe, at like 11-6. I made a couple of adjustments right before the season started, but the Commanders I do have at number 3. Number 2, I have as the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions. I mean, they put up what it was 35 at halftime yesterday. Jared Goff had like 36 pass yards at half, and they already had 35 points on the board. Um, they did lose their best defensive player in Aiden Hutchinson, who's out for the year, obviously. But I saw a crazy stat that the Lions have like more touchdowns than incompletions. That's insane. What been the way how Dan or how they were able to get Ben Johnson back? Obviously, we all know he's going to be in a head coaching position by the end of this year. But he decided to come back after the loss to the San Francisco 49ers in the NFC Championship game. I think just the way how their offense is able to maneuver and their utilization of Jahmyr Gibbs, as a lot of fantasy owners were pissed off with his usage last year. He's been just unstoppable. That dynamic of him and Montgomery has been. I think they call themselves Sonic and Knuckles, and
Mm-hmm.
we obviously know who Jameer is and who Montgomery is, but um, Goff has been quietly playing at an MVP caliber level. I think they he makes the offense go. And I think with how he's been operating in the combination of, obviously you have Amon-Ra St. Brown, you have Stan Laporta, and those two running backs, that offense it looks unstoppable. And the number one team obviously is Kansas City Chiefs. I don't think it really, they're the last undefeated team in the NFL. They play bad. They still win games. Patrick Mahomes last week against the Niners threw 2 picks. They still win by double digits. They go on the road against the Raiders. I don't think they covered the spread. I think the spread was 10. I think they won by a touchdown, if I'm not mistaken. But I mean, the Kansas City Chiefs are obviously the best team in football. They just acquired DeAndre Hopkins, and the team is only going to get scary. I mean, Pacheco's supposed to be coming back in the upcoming weeks. And you have arguably, yes, Kevin has Pacheco on his fantasy team. I want to give a shout out to Kev. I do owe him a bottle of champagne, taking out the number one guy in our fantasy league. And now I am the number one guy in fantasy. But that will be only for a week probably, because I've been devoured by injuries. Cooked by injuries. I have nobody to catch the ball. So we'll probably get into that a little bit later at the end of the show. But I do think the Chiefs are obviously the best team in football. Kev's probably going to I really wanted to put in like some teams I had in outside top 5. Obviously the Eagles. They're on the up and up. I think they're just right outside. The Bills are another team that are right on the outside. The Steelers are a team that we kind of got to like, hey, they're number one in their division now. Like Russ and the Steelers are a legit team. They can put up points with Russell Wilson as a quarterback. I get a bunch of Steeler fans are going to be like, Justin Fields was doing all this and that. Russ came in. They started putting up a bunch of points. They don't stall out in the red zone. I think they're going to be a team to kind of watch out for. A team that we really didn't look at in the AFC and already stacked the AFC. Like we thought the Bengals would have been something. They haven't really done shit. Obviously the Ravens, you have the Bills. The Jets were supposed to be one of those teams. And the Texans are another team who I have going to the Super Bowl right now. I don't think they're playing like a top 5 NFL team. But yeah, so to kind of recap, I have the Packers at number 5. I have the Ravens at number 4. I have the Commanders at number 3. Yes, the Commanders. I have the Detroit Lions at number 2. And then we have the Kansas City Chiefs at number 5.
You know we beat the Packers, right?
That is true, Kevin.
I just want to make sure you didn't forget that.
Not on US soil.
Now, after hearing Toddy's top 5, I'm going to swing it to you next. Who are your current top 5 teams in the NFL?
Well, not to burst your bubble, my brother, but I don't have us in the top 5 as of right now. Starting with number 5, I'm going with after what I just saw tonight and some very careful just evaluating. I got the Pittsburgh Steelers at number 5. Just something about this team. I was just talking to my roommate and my good friend about it just now watching the game. I was like, the Steelers obviously always find a way to win every season. And we know the reason why is because of Mike Tomlin. But it's like they do it in such a Steelers way where it's like they don't need to do much to win games. They can close out a lot of games by scoring just 17 to 20 points, which says a lot about their defense, which says a lot about guys like TJ Watt, obviously. They also got Joey Porter Jr. over there on playing cornerback who's pretty much locked down as well. The Steelers defense is legit. And if they don't have the most exciting offense, who's to say that they don't have a top team? I mean, they might be one of the last of a dying breed where it comes down to a team being so defensive dominant that they can actually be a force to be reckoned with, a team that can make a run in the playoffs. I think it was hard for me to leave the Steelers out of my top 5. Not just because of the record alone, but just because, again, they are always winning games when it matters against usually formidable opponents. I get it was the Giants tonight, which wasn't a big deal, but there was 2 big plays taken away from George Pickens tonight. I mean, that game could have easily been a 30-plus point game to 9 at one point, and it wasn't. And it was flag central. But all in all, the Pittsburgh Steelers have a great defense. It's the same old Pittsburgh Steelers that we've seen year in, year out. And just from coaching through the defense, through their offense playing just competent enough to being winners, I just couldn't leave it on my top 5, and the record shows. So I got Pittsburgh at number 5. Number 4, kind of the same situation, but a little different only because they got rid of some guys on offense. That is the Buffalo Bills. Getting rid of Stephon Diggs. You got James Cook, who's out for a couple of weeks. No problem. You got Josh Allen, who, in previous years, we give him a lot of guff where it's like, this guy throws picks. He actually has been playing really well and protecting the ball super well this season. And on top of that, I mean, I understand that they're kind of in a weaker division only because of one injuries. Like, you got Tua going out in Miami. Obviously, the Jets, getting Rodgers back, a really slow start for the Jets. And then you got obviously New England, who, I mean, they're in a rebuild for the most part, even though they haven't looked that bad at times either. But the Bills should be in a position they are to win that division. But at the same time, let's not pretend like they weren't supposed to take a step back. And they're still, I believe, what are they, 6-2? So I mean, like, the Buffalo Bills are still a great team somehow, some way. And I think a lot of it has to do with just them trusting Josh Allen to get the job done, and their defense at times making big plays. So I got the Buffalo Bills at number 4. Number 3, I got the Detroit Lions. Detroit, probably out of this entire list, has, I would say, the highest upside when it comes to that offense. They, like Toddy just said, they did lose Aiden Hutchinson for the season, which is a huge loss. And that just comes to show about how good, the Lions really are. They lost Aiden Hutchinson and immediately went right back out there and still dropped buckets. You know what I'm saying? So we can talk about the Detroit Lions in the same way that we can talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Lions have a phenomenal offense. You put up 24 points, they're going to put up 30 points. You put up 30 points, they're going to put up 35 points. I mean, at some point, you got to give credit where credit's due. Until I see that Lions offense take a step back, they're not going to be outside of my top 3. I'm sorry, for the remainder of the season. And they're going to be a team that I can foresee making it to the NFC Championship game again. And if that's the case, then, I stand by where they are on my list. At number 2, I got the Baltimore Ravens. I think that if the Ravens were undefeated, I would have them at number 1, but they're not. The Baltimore Ravens are, I'm not sure how many of their games you watched this season, but I mean, I understand they lost to the Browns. I mean, it's the NFL, you guys. These things are going to happen. You know what I'm saying? You're going to have really good teams losing to terrible teams. It's already happened a handful of times this season, and it's going to continue to happen. And I guarantee the next one is going to be like the Chiefs losing to someone that they have no business losing to.
They should have lost to the Raiders.
Yep. My point exactly. This time it was the Ravens' time to kind of have a stinker. And what's funny about that is it wasn't about what the Browns did. It's about what the Ravens didn't do. The Ravens shot themselves in the foot. Tons of drop passes, tons of dropped interceptions, tons of just hiccups here and there. And it's like, you're allowing the Browns to stay in this game. I'm not looking at this Browns loss like with anything at all. The Ravens, like, they could lose that game 50-0 to the Browns, and I'm like putting it behind me because I've seen what the Ravens have done for the last 5 weeks of football before that. They started off 0-2, I think it was, and then they won 4 straight or something like that. 3 or 4 straight. I think it was 4 straight. The Ravens are clearly a top team in the league. I mean, if you don't have them in your top 2, they can't be outside of your top 3. That's my personal opinion. Seeing the way that Lamar's facts. Seeing the way that Lamar is playing right now, seeing the way Derrick Henry is playing right now, seeing the way the defense is playing right now, okay? They're not even doing it with any high-end wide receiver right now either. I mean, Zay Flowers is their number 1. Nothing against Zay Flowers. I like the guy, but he's their number 1. You look at the rest of the league. Look at some of the guys they got. I mean, look at Philadelphia. You know who he got, throw the ball to. Look at Cincinnati. You know what I'm saying? Hell, even look at the Commanders. Jaden Daniels is playing phenomenal, but let's not act like Terry McLaurin's not a guy. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you look at the Ravens, and I'm gonna ask you this: you take a guy like Terry McLaurin, while we're on the topic, and you put him on Baltimore. What's that look like, guys? What does that really look like? You know what I mean? And just all in all, I think that the Baltimore's defense. Actually, I know the Baltimore's defense is playing, very well this season. Very well this season. All of their losses, from what I've seen, the 2 early on, it is what it is. Week 1, week 2, we don't really know. No team really has a true identity, and we all understand that. But the one against the Browns, I'm putting behind me. I don't really care about that. It means nothing to me at all. The Ravens, as of right now, when they're on, they look just as dominant as the Detroit Lions, but more well-rounded. They're dominant on offense and defense. The Lions are dominant one-dimensional. The Ravens are dominant on both sides, which is why I put them ahead of the Lions. And then as for the last one, the obvious one, the Kansas City Chiefs, the only team in the league that is undefeated. Hate it or love it. We talked about it last week, Kevin, about how we felt about Patrick Mahomes, or these picks and I don't care. I don't care. If you throw 35 picks in a season and you guys are winning games and you're making key plays down the stretch, even though you're throwing pick after pick and you're not really doing much outside of those picks, and you guys win a Super Bowl, do you think we give a damn about those picks? We don't. If they're going to continue to win these games with Patrick Mahomes playing subpar, I'm not going to discredit them. Sorry. And Patrick Mahomes is playing probably one of the worst starters on his team, and they're still winning. Their defense is great. Chris Jones is playing at an MVP caliber level this year. They're also doing it like I mentioned before. I think I mentioned last week as well, Kevin, that the Chiefs. Let's not pretend like they haven't been bitten by the injury bug. They lost Pacheco. They signed Kareem Hunt. They lost what's his name? Rashee Rice. Okay, they didn't have Hollywood for the entire season. Like, you guys can't keep moving the goalposts for teams where it's like, well, we don't have this guy, we don't have that guy. Well, neither do they, and look what they're doing. Travis Kelce was a ghost the first 4 weeks of football. So are we going to just blame the refs the entire way? It's just the referees, or are we going to just call a good team a good team? The Kansas City Chiefs are undefeated, rightfully so. And whether it's by a 5-point win or by a 20-point win, they are undefeated. They're the best team in the league, and anybody saying otherwise is crazy.
I agree with you, Cass, and I'm kind of disappointed, Cass. Eagles outside the top 5. You didn't pick us against the Bengals.
Just for right now, man. I'm being very strict. I need to see it just a little bit more, and then we'll get to talking. But for right now, I'm chilling. I'll talk a little bit of shit here and there, but I'm chilling.
All right, Toddy, I'm gonna need you to unmute yourself for this. I want you to hear this one. This is gonna hit home right here, Toddy. So, number 5, I have the Washington Commanders. Yes, they've been scraping by, but at the end of the day, all we look at is wins. And Jaden Daniels continues week after week after week to continue to get those wins. So you can't come in here and not say Jaden Daniels is great. He's playing great right now. We haven't seen them have a quarterback like this since RG3. So at 4, I do have the Philadelphia Eagles. Kevin, how can you have the Eagles over the Commanders? Mathematically speaking, they're above you guys. I'm willing to bet everybody watching this podcast, we see Saquon on a 4th and 2 on an out route. 9 times out of 9, he's gonna catch it.
You won't let that Kirk Cousins loss go, guys.
If he catches that, you look at this team completely different. So that's how I'm gonna look at this. If we catch that when we're 6-1, no one's gonna say the Commanders are better than us. So I'm going to say that the Philadelphia Eagles come in at 4, and at 3, I have the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen continues week after week after week to get it done with me, you, and Cass. You know, they brought in Amari Cooper this week, and then we saw a rebirth of Keon Coleman. You know, I had him on my bench for 8 weeks, and now I'm like, man, do I play him? Keon Coleman's getting active, but they have so much going over there. You can't really just focus on one guy. You got Shakir. You have Amari Cooper. You have Keon Coleman. You have what's the running back's name? James Cook. You have James Cook out the backfield, and now you have Ray Davis, Toddy's guy. So they have a lot of things going on top of Dawson Knox. So they have a lot of things going in Buffalo. So that's why I have them at 3. At 2, I have the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions, week after week after week, are getting it done. You guys both mentioned it. They lose Aiden Hutchinson, and they don't skip a beat. They're going to go out there and continue to play. Jared Goff had 34 passing yards at halftime, and you're up 32 points. You're sitting back, kicking your feet up, living life. And then at number 1, like everybody else on this panel, you got to give it to the Kansas City Chiefs. Receiver after receiver goes down. Juju goes down. Juju came back and had 100 yards, and Kareem Hunt had 100 yards, and that was the first time since 2017, 2018. So that was how long ago it was for those players to be as dominant as they were. They sent Juju off to New England, and everyone thought he was toast. Now he's with Patrick going for 100 yards. So the Chiefs and Big Red continue to figure it out every week, and you got to tip their hats to them. So that is concluding my top 5.
So you don't have the Ravens in there?
Nah, man, I left lose to the Browns.
I feel like if you guys were to play the Ravens,
we do play.
When?
December 1st in Baltimore.
I'm saying today, if you guys were to play the Ravens at home on the road, you guys would be underdogs.
I bet you we win. I don't care what Larry thinks. I don't care what Larry says.
That's fine, but
he's not out there blocking.
I just think Lamar has been playing better than Jalen Hurts, and I get Jalen Hurts.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying team for team. If you're telling me you're going to beat me by handing off the ball to Derrick Henry 11 times, you're out of your damn mind. And we saw this in the playoff game. They sit Lamar back, and he's patting the ball, and he's looking left and right. I mean, don't get me wrong. His receivers ain't helping him no damn bit.
No,
dropping everything. Lamar's doing his thing, but you after what we've seen from Derrick Henry, for him to average 6.1 25 yards a carry and he touches it 11 times. I'm not saying I'm not one of those guys who say no on Lamar and he's a running back. That's just not me. I think Lamar's a hell of a quarterback. But when you have someone like Derrick Henry, he can't touch the ball 11 times. We'd say the same for a CMC, a Saquon Barkley. When you have guys like this, 11 times just isn't going to cut it. So, unfortunately, after that loss, you're going to have to fall out of the top 5 for me. It's only week 8, so there's a lot of football to be played. But as of right now, I'm going to have to rock them at 5 or out of my top 5. So, moving on, we